In the history of the 20th century, few names evoke such terror and transformation as Joseph Stalin. He presided over a country, the Soviet Union, of unprecedented scale and ambition, a world power built on the backs of its own people. He was a dictator responsible for the deaths of millions, through famine, forced labor, and relentless political purges. He had enemies everywhere, old Bolshevik rivals, disillusioned party members, even top military commanders. So why, when the evidence of his brutality was mounting, when opposition flickered both within the party and the populace, why was Joseph Stalin never ousted? Why did his unshakable grip on power only loosen with his final breath? The answer lies not in popularity, but in architecture, the masterful, insidious structure of power Stalin built. His foundation was the seemingly bureaucratic role he inherited, General Secretary of the Communist Party. Lenin, in his final days, warned the party to remove Stalin from this post, recognizing his dangerously concentrated power. They ignored him. By the time of Lenin's death, Stalin had already staffed the party apparatus and the entire state bureaucracy with hundreds of thousands of his personal loyalists. They owed their careers and often their lives to him alone. Apparatus was the scaffolding, the Great Purge was the wrecking ball. Between 1934 and 1939, Stalin systematically eliminated every single political rival, every potential source of opposition. The old Bolsheviks, the revered companions of Lenin, were paraded in grotesque show trials, confessing to outlandish crimes before being executed. More terrifyingly, the purges hollowed out the entire Soviet military, assassinating top marshals and decimating the officer corps. Any attempt at a coup, any organized resistance, was preemptively decapitated. The fear was so absolute, society was atomized, no one knew who to trust, and thus, no one dared to coordinate a move against the leader. But fear was only one tool. Another was ideology. Stalin established a rigid ideological orthodoxy, socialism in one country. This doctrine, a break from Trotsky's vision of global revolution, cemented the idea that the Soviet project was sacred and non-negotiable, and Stalin was its high priest. Critically, he exerted total control over information. The Soviet media, the arts, the schools, everything became a relentless propaganda machine. Stalin wasn't just a political leader. He was the vожdь, the supreme leader, the benevolent father, the brilliant military strategist. This created an elaborate alternate reality where any criticism or opposition was, by definition, an act of treason, a betrayal of the Soviet state itself, and an assault on the man who had steered them from a backward agrarian nation into an industrial giant. Then came the ultimate test, the German invasion of 1941, the Great Patriotic War. For a brief, terrifying moment, Stalin seemed lost, retreating to his dacha, anticipating a coup, but it never came. Paradoxically, the existential crisis of World War II only strengthened his position. The Soviet people, facing an enemy whose brutality quickly exceeded even their own internal state terror, rallied. They fought not just for communism, but for the survival of their homeland. In the face of a genocidal enemy, Stalin morphed into a genuine savior, the national figurehead who, for all his cruelty, ultimately led them to victory. The public acceptance of his leadership became intertwined with the very survival of the Soviet Union. His position became unassailable, validated by the bloodiest victory in human history. Stalin wasn't ousted because he made it impossible. He dismantled the system that might have removed him, replaced it with one that glorified him, and used terror to paralyze the will of the few who still dared to resist. The loyalty he commanded was a poisoned cocktail of genuine or material self-interest, and above all, a deeply ingrained, paralyzing fear. It was a fear so potent, so pervasive, that it required not a political revolution, but the failure of his own body to finally bring the nightmare of Joseph Stalin's rule to an end. If you enjoyed this video, then like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel.